Okay, this is another response to Gary, DoNotGod, response to my initial video on evolutionary, I can't remember the name, evolutionary original sin, something like that. I was talking about evolution anyway. A couple of points there, Gary. Okay, you're talking about consciousness. You introduced it at the beginning and they come back to it at the end. And if I understand you right, you're making an argument for consciousness there, which is well, I'm not quite sure if I got this right actually. You're either saying that it's a kind of irreducible thing, that it either springs into being at a certain point of complexity, so you assemble this brain using whatever means that are used for that process. Then at a certain point in that assembly process, consciousness kicks in, pretty much fully formed, pretty much like we've got it, or like other primates may have it, that kind of thing. Or a bit later on you kind of describe it as like a particular, like a module or something like that, this little lump of particularly conscious set of neurons, I don't know, that do the consciousness job. I don't know, I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea really. It doesn't feel like that to me, I have to say. It doesn't, and I've read a bit about consciousness. And you may well be right. I know there are people who are doing experiments and writing in that kind of way. So it may well be that there are what they call neural correlates of consciousness, or it might be this emergent thing. You know what I mean, where you just accumulate stuff, and at a certain point more becomes different, and it turns into lights on and that kind of stuff. I don't know. That may be the case. It doesn't really attract me as an idea, which isn't to say it's not right, but it just doesn't feel like that to me. It feels more like. What does it feel like? It does feel like an accumulation. It does feel like a gradual accumulation without a particular point in it at which the lights come on. And as I say, I'm just relying on my personal experience here. It feels much more like a lot of I guess it's because what I was trying to get to yesterday, and I don't think I really got this, was to do with how consciousness feels different. And it's not just that it feels different. It feels different in different ways. You mentioned dreaming. I'd love to get into dreaming, but it's taking bloody ages to respond to that. But if you're dreaming, or if you're drunk, or if you're smoked dope, or whatever you've done, or if you're asleep and dreaming, these are all different states, undoubtedly. But I think even within that, there's so much fluctuation and so much variation. And personally, and certainly, I can't distinguish a single character that my consciousness has got, other than the fact that I've got it. I don't. Or people tell me I've got it, or when I look for it, it's there, that kind of thing that I tried to mention last time. And I can't really distinguish my consciousness from the things that I'm conscious of. So I'm looking at this, I'm looking at a radiator that's on the wall of my office here, and I can't really, this just sounds insane, so I apologise for that, but I can't really draw a distinction in my feelings here of me being conscious of the radiator, or me, or the consciousness being the radiator. There's no distinction there for me, as far as I can't draw the distinction in my mind. I can't think. Well, I kind of know that there's a logic where your consciousness is like a bright light, and it illuminates the contents of consciousness. You know what I mean? So there's the world, and it's in darkness, and there's the radiator in the world, and I open my eyes, and consciousness kind of floods out there and kind of lights it up. And that may well be the case, but that's not how I really feel it or experience it. Because, as I say, I can't tell the difference between that kind of view and just consciousness being the radiator right now. I'm conscious the radiator. I can't really get any more articulate than that. It's just, I don't. It's a personal thing. So I guess all I'm saying is that accumulation. I'm more wedded to the idea that consciousness, just like the brain itself, is this weird kludged together set of small entities, each one of which is doing its little mental neuronal job. And there's bazillions of these happening all the time. I don't know how many things are going on in your brain simultaneously, but there's a lot of it going on. And most of that stuff, I'm guessing, has it's the accumulation of all that stuff which is conscious for me. The accumulation of all that kind of stuff. That's pretty much all I can say. And some bits of it switch off, and some bits switch on. And in consciousness is this weird kind of like orchestral noise that's happening, really, rather than it being, what I said before. What else have we got? So look at it next. Yeah, some stuff to do with feelings. I can't disentangle feeling and consciousness in this. So so that stuff you're talking about pain, and the contrast you made between that pain and the milder feelings, the stuff that I think you used hunger as an example. Those milder feelings, which they don't have an awful lot of negative or positive associations with them. You're not repelled by them. You're not particularly attracted by them. You certainly don't, write a song about them or anything like that. They're just the kind of mild stuff that accompanies day-to-day existence. And you're making a distinction between those and suggesting that those milder feelings possibly came first. Again, I'm not sure, because I think there's a difference here because feelings, I think, I think feelings are inherently a conscious, fully conscious aspect of our being, and so that feeling, as consciousness accumulates, if you like, through these budging together these little elements, so our capacity for feeling accumulates. And what starts out as something really simple, just like a reflex arc, like you've mentioned yourself, like a thermostat. Now you've got a thermostat, there's your bimetallic strip, and you warm it up, and when you warm up to a certain bit, it has a completely physical, chemical effect, and the biochemical strip bends like that because of the different expansion rates of the metals, and that's and that forms your switch. It's a response, but it's a completely mechanical response. But you can kind of imagine, and it's just an analogy, I can kind of imagine lots of these bimetallic strips all going together with kind of heat serving to mobilize these switches. And what starts out as something purely mechanical eventually starts to lead to, through feedback loops and through different kinds of uses of this very basic technology, starts to lead to much more complex instantiations of that. So it's not just that the strip is moving, but somewhere else in this complex system you'll have some information about how the strip is moving, or some kind of representation of how the strip is moving, and maybe some kind of weighted value associated with the results of that strip moving. And all of this stuff is accumulating around this set of movements, and kind of builds up, and at a certain point we might start to refer to that build-up, that accumulation of relatively straightforward little components. We might start to refer to that as feeling, and some of it will be very mild indeed. Some of it will be so mild that we don't even think of it as feeling at all. We just think of it as being awake or being alive. But in other cases, of course, it will be intensified. Just like, I guess, just for good survival reasons, but for good other reasons as well. All of our senses are intensified according to how useful they are. I've got crap eyesight actually, but some animals have got very good eyesight and can pick out details because they need to and because it's been useful. And pretty much all animals, ourselves are no exception, are very good at picking out sources of pleasures and pain, and those feelings intensify. So we're really good at getting away from things that hurt, and really good at moving towards things that float our boat. So I think, not quite sure if that's made any sense either, but what I'm trying to say there is that I think in my understanding of it, and it may be flawed, that accumulation of very, very simple sets of kind of mechanical or electromechanical or electrochemical, those kind of reflex arcs, the accumulation of those, as that approaches consciousness and complexifies that version of consciousness and offers different versions of that consciousness that we experience as waking life, so our understandings of things like pain complexify, and what starts out as something which is completely neutral and just purely mechanical eventually becomes weighted and given all this kind of experiential value. That's kind of how I'm reading that anyway. Okay, lots of different feelings: fear, want, lust. Yep, absolutely agree with you on that one. Mild feelings, distant, waking consciousness, feedback loop. Anticipating the future. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. This is what you call this. You refer to this sixth sense feedback thing. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's one of the things that's fascinating, I think, about consciousness, is the fact that one of the things it seems to be really good at, as well as responding to the lived environment, is like seeing radiators and packets of biscuits and cameras and all that kind of stuff, and be able to touch these things. It's, as you rightly said, it seems to be able to reproduce these and simulate them. And not only simulate them as they are, but simulate them as they might be, kind of run virtual reality simulations of possible futures and possible pasts, and run them while we're asleep, maybe, as I think you're implying when you talk about dreams. And yeah, and that's just fascinating. I'm not quite sure where it goes, actually, but it certainly feeds into our experience of what it is to be alive and awake. And actually, I think that's a good example in terms of... I'm not sure if this will make any sense. Oh, damn it, it's too late. Run out of time again. I'll continue in another video.